I imagine we could get the ball rolling. Let's call the meeting to order. And let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Roll call, please.
Chairman Christensen,
Present.
Road Commissioner Greenan,
Here.
Commissioner Ross. Here. Member Thompson
Here.
and Member Warner.
Here.
All present.
Thank you. So we have an agenda in front of us, the proposed agenda. If you take a squint at it and see if you'd like to do an addition or a deletion. Hearing none, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move we adopt the agenda as shown.
Support.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we've got an agenda. Brings us to public comment. Mr. Popa.
My name is John Popa. I liked everything that you guys are tackling here, and I just have one suggestion. I think you guys should meet more often than you do. And if you reserve over the next 12 months, a certain time, all the time, every day, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to have a meeting that month. Like the road commission meets twice a month, and if you don't have any business, you just cancel it. But I think like when you say, hey, we're gonna have to have another meeting, and you find everything on the calendar is plugged up, I think when you pick your meetings and your officers next month, my suggestion is have a meeting every month, because you guys got a lot of work here to do.
Thank you.
That's my case.
Thanks, John. Any other public comment? Don Coppins is sitting in the back of the room. We met with him this week. He has met and talked with John and Jerry over the last 3 years on occasion. We're fortunate to have him in the room. He has a very high level of expertise designing hydraulic systems, not dissimilar from the one we have at the dam. The paperwork that's in the packet, I included his input for that we went over on a meeting this last week before, just to let you know and show you that when he's talking to us about these hydraulic systems and his input, it's from years of experience and very completely thought out, and I appreciate you being here, Don. He traveled from downstate to be here today. So, that being said, we can move on to action item number 1. Approval of minutes, September 13th, and there is another group of minutes that we'll bring forward to the next meeting that we did the same thing last month. So those are still coming, but we do have in front of us September 13th.
Seems like a long time ago.
A lot of water over the dam. Oh, oh, oh. Okay,
Do we need to move these?
I would accept a motion.
I'll move to accept the minutes from the September 13th, 2023 Leland Dam Authority regular meeting.
Support?
Okay, we have a motion, we have support. Any comments or discussion on them? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We have approved our minutes. We have an approved budget. It's on the back side. Oh, it's somewhere in there. There we go. Oops. So, in essence, and I'm not sure if they've gotten to the point of the extra request for capital outlay yet, but we do have the 21,000, and they have monies that are available, and as we move forward, we'll have to make a recommendation to the county board. And some of the stuff that we're about to do will probably go over what is listed in front of you. But they know that. So, any comments on the budget situation?
Steve, the capital outlay, is that specific to any item?
No, I expect we'll have 20,000 in there. My request was more than that. Let's see if I've got that. Apologize for a second here. Let me see. I just actually need a little more paper. Okay, oops. Okay. My request was for 66,600. The decking replacement for the walkway at 38.8 plus 20%. For 46.6, rounded up, and then roof repair estimate 20,000 to 66,600. That was page 1. Page 2, hydraulic seal replacement 20,000. And my comment there is that the lifts and the hydraulic central control system that lifts and lowers the crest gate are at or beyond their warranty lifespan. We are in the process of having an expert who lives on the lake make recommendations, seal replacement. We estimate 20,000 would give us a good start on the project. We had 40,000 in the 10-year plan that John and I were involved with in making some estimates going forward. We'll have more solid numbers after consulting with companies on replacement seals for a grand total of 86,600. That was my request. So they know what's coming.
Steve, did you prioritize these requests, or has this group, or,
Um,
I mean,
Not-
because you're
not-
probably not going to get all 66,000. I'm just guessing, right?
Well, when we go for the seal replacement, it'll have to happen.
So that's a
There
number
will not be a
one.
question.
Okay, yeah.
It'll have to happen.
Sure,
I mean, we're-
sure.
I mean, so,
And we
the
had
county
done-
board could say, no, we're not gonna do that, but I think that would be
No,
silly.
I don't think they're going to say that. I'm just wondering if the roof and the decking, if we had a priority listing that would, I mean, because I thought we had done some work on the roof and it was holding, isn't that
That was the
in the,
conduit.
okay,
And I think with getting kind of down the road a little bit on these hydraulic system questions, I'm feeling pretty strongly that we need to head that way. The walkway is serviceable. We do have a report in our packet we'll go through, but it's looking to me like the hydraulics are going to win out. Good point.
thank you.
A question about the CO replacement. Will there be a period of time when the dam gate is inoperable?
That's a great question. Why don't we save that for that section? We'll get into that in depth.
Okay.
So, there, we talked about the budget.
Do we need to do anything? I mean, it's already been approved, right?
Well, correct.
Okay, so we're just,
Yeah, I think, I don't
Okay.
know. It was,
there's no action to be taken on it.
we typically don't. We look at it and see where it is, make comments. So I don't think we need a motion there. With no more comments on the budget, we can move on to item 3, dam adjustment procedures, operations, policy manual, update, discussion. Maybe I'll pass this on to Garth. We did have a meeting, Deb, Jerry, Garth, and myself got the ball rolling. Then we had a more recent meeting, Jerry, Garth, and myself, to actually flesh out procedures and get them in a on paper format. I basically dumped all my notes into Garth's lab at that meeting, and I'll let him kind of explain where we are and.
Yeah, I've got the same paper as you do, I have a bunch of things here. But what we did is we outlined essentially 5 different conditions that the dam operates in. Normal, which we consider less than 1 inch of rain for 24 hours or 14 days without rainfall. So either droughty conditions or rainy conditions. In that situation, we operate the dam in its automatic mode, so it adjusts based
Chairman?
on.
Can I ask that everybody please speak up, because this is like a very quiet meeting, and so the recording is having a very hard time picking up everybody's voices. And for me to go back and re-listen, it doesn't get any better.
Sure,
Thank you.
I'm sorry,
That's okay.
I'm
That's
soft-spoken,
just-
I know
it's okay.
that. So climatic condition 2 would be a minor rainfall event or minor snowfall event considered, we consider anything less than a 10-year storm to fall within that range, and that would be 1 inch of rainfall per 24 hours, up to 3.2 inches for 24 hours. And in this condition, we still operate the dam in automatic. It should be able to hold our normal operating elevation, which we considered at 589.1, and maintain lake level of 589.21, which is the quartered elevation. We do realize that means, though, that the stage elevation at the dam may fall below 589.04, which is the low level on the court-ordered lake level elevation. But in order to draw a larger amount of water down through the dam, when you open the gates, the elevation at the dam drops because you have more head loss between the lake and the dam. So we recognize that. There's nothing that can be done about that, but we recognize that. The third climatic condition would be a major rainfall event, which we consider anything between 10-year and 100-year event per 24 hours, which would be from 3.2 inches to 4.5 inches. In that case, we will manually draw down the level at the dam. And we know that elevation at the dam will be less than 589.04. Well, in that condition, we check lake levels at the narrows every 12 hours, and we continue to dump water until we get elevation down to 588.9 at the dam, in which case we would look at returning to automatic or returning to normal lake levels, which would hopefully get us back in the range that we need to be. And then the fourth climatic condition is greater than 4.5 inches per 24 hours. In that case, again, we do a manual drawdown. We keep drawing down, and we did not make a determination on how often to check, but we looked at whether it'd be worthwhile to remove the stop logs, and in that case, because of the head loss in the river, we feel there'd be a very small gain in that, and it's a fairly challenging issue to do, so we would still consider that as a major drawdown by using the gates in the dam. And then the fifth condition would be a power outage, and we did not address that directly.
Yeah, we had a approximate hour meeting. It was Jer and Garth and myself, and on my to-do list here on my agenda, next meeting with Jerry and Garth as we move through those conditions. Basically, what we're doing is we're kind of grilling Jerry. You know, here's the situation, Jerry, and then we want to know what he's thinking, and then we want to know what actions he would take in that situation. So basically, we're gleaning his 40 years of experience into a written format, and I'm guessing halfway through. We'll do probably another hour meeting, see where we are, and then Garth will continue to add to his matrix, and the end result will be a document that can be used by Dwayne, whoever is the next person to be the dam operator. As an aside, I did give Leslie a call. I think that's the name I need to use. Who is the dam operator in Antrim? Leslie Myers, I think. And I talked with her predecessor, Mark Stone, I don't even think it was a year ago. And I was kind of expecting to ping on him to see what kind of procedure manual he has put together. But he left, and I'm not too sure the conditions, but he did not leave anything. So
We don't want that.
what she is doing is, one of her tasks this winter is to put together a procedural manual, just like we're doing. So
Nice.
anyway, I was hoping to get an off-the-shelf version that we could compare with, but that did not happen. So anyway, A says manual name, which is kind of interesting, but
Can I ask, well,
Go ahead.
this is great, I think didn't this come out of the MMRA, the insurance recommendations that we needed to develop a policy or something in writing?
It's been a drumbeat for a while, and
Yeah.
he reiterated, sure.
Yeah, okay. In this policy, will there also be like a chain of command on how those decisions, maybe when we get up into 4 or 5, how those decisions are initiated or something, I guess?
Good
Wasn't
point.
that
Yeah, good point. That's part of.
the next step?
Yeah, maybe Garth, you can take a note, as to, we get to a certain point, with activity, more than one person should be in the know as to what's happening. So at a certain point, probably Jerry or Dwayne would be talking to maybe the chair of the dam authority, and then the chair of the dam authority would do something, a memo to the administrator
Perfect.
possibly. So we've got a kind of a 3-stage thing going on. So 3 people are in the know as to what's going on with the dam. And then beyond that, I would imagine the very large situations, the 1,000-year storm event, the power outage, that type of thing, may require another level of action that we'll have to put down, and we can add to it in this group. But that is part of where we're going with this. Nice point, yes.
Can I add too that everybody on this committee, because I'm sure being a lake owner yourself, we're representing our constituents, so if we're in on the loop as soon as we can be too, so that we're conveying
There was
good information to
the
our
Lake
people who call us.
Association, one of the levels would be to make contact with the Lake Association, whether it be through the authority or a call number to the Lake Authority, or I'm sorry, the Lake Association. But
Yeah, there is a emergency action plan, at least a draft of the emergency action plan in the manual, and
Nice.
I think,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry about that. There is an emergency action plan in the documents that we have, and I think what we can do maybe to address that is, in the emergency action plan, we can have information on who to notify when we have major or historic events. So that'll allow us to know that when we have these big events like we had this year, that there is a procedure to go through, and it's outlined in the emergency action plan, which we do have.
Do I recall from a previous meeting, there was a talk about a generator in the case of a power outage that had to be borrowed or could be borrowed from someone? Or,
we actually have one.
okay.
And it's stored where, Jared? Yeah. Thanks. And we have the capability to hook it up in Leland at the pole. It's a fail-safe hookup.
Can I comment on that?
Sure.
Just that exchange made me a little nervous. So if Jerry's out of town or not available, we don't know even where the generator is. I'm hopeful Dwayne does, but again, if it's in writing where it's being stored. So in a case of one person in the link being missing, there's no hesitation for us to get that generator there. All these little details all go together. So thanks.
Good point. And there is a testing protocol. I believe it's once a year is a test on that unit. So that procedure needs to be fleshed out also. Good point.
And that's part of the certification.
Operations of,
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah. When is that gonna happen again? When do we have to be recertified, or isn't there every certain number of years,
Oh,
right? So if that's coming up, is
It's
that
a,
something?
it's a 2025.
Okay,
Spicer's recommending another underwater inspection.
okay,
It's a triannual.
try it, I thought so, yeah.
So anyway, so the manual expands a little bit. I think that's good. Having all of the items that we can think to generate to be in a procedural manual, and having at least two people able to actually physically do it and practice it, I think would be good too.
Totally.
You know, we've got Jerry and we have Dwayne, and having both of those people able to do the whole procedural manual is a key element.
Did you need a name for it? Is that an action item?
Well, it is an item, man. I see it there.
You want to get creative, or just kind of pretty much say
Dam Operations
procedure?
Policy and Procedural Manual.
I think that pretty much sums it up, doesn't it? I don't think we need to get fancy. Do we need a motion on that? When it's an action item, I'm always confused. We do need a motion?
Yes.
If we wish
If,
to.
if we want to make that the name, Dam Operations Procedure and Policy Manual.
If that's going to help it move forward faster, I say go for it. If not, maybe just as you're developing it, the name might make more sense after you finished it.
I would entertain a motion for that name.
I so move to name it the Leland Dam Policy and Procedures Manual. Is that what you said?
Operations Procedure
Operations.
and Policy Manual.
Do you have it, Allison? Okay.
Support?
Comments? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And for short, we'll call it the Dam Manual.
Careful. You knew that
I
was
couldn't help myself.
That's why we made a motion. We at least warned you.
Oh, shoot. Stayed up way too late. Okay. That gets us to B. So after our meeting with Don, I shot him a text and just asked if he could find out if we could get that exact cylinder that we have there in the control room. And he not only went ahead and figured that out, but he made contact with the company, and they gave us a quote, and that's in your packet.
Is this a company that we've purchased them from before, or?
I think not, actually. This is more closer to the source. And Don used his expertise and contacts and able to get in touch with this company. And Parker is the company that actually makes the cylinder. So that quote is in front of you. I think I would open up the discussion about the hydraulics in general, see where we are. Yeah, that's a sidelight of item B is the hydraulic system maintenance update. So we can open it up for discussion about the hydraulic system. I think I can kind of kick it off. Was Garth and Jerry, myself, and Don. After our procedural meeting, we went ahead and dove into the hydraulic end of it. And in essence, the seals for the system are at the end of their life or past. We have 2 cylinders operating together. And with the proper pressurized system design, one of those cylinders could be doing that work. So we have 2 cylinders doing the work that one could do per se, but we're able to do it at a little lower pressure. This system is designed to have those 2 cylinders working in harmony. It's been going for almost 20 years now, so we have a successful design, a successful run of time. At this point in time, we need a general plan to proceed with updating the seals. There are seals inside the cylinders, and there are seals inside the system. And we're running into, I was glad to know we could get the cylinder. That's a good thing. And then maybe we start there. Don informs us that the pumps that are inside of the system, we have 2 motors and 2 pumps in a hydraulic bath, and they suck up the oil and pressurize the system and move the cylinders. The pumps that are in there are not manufactured anymore. So we have that staring us in the face. One of the more significant things about our system is that it was not designed to be maintained on the fly. In other words, Don explained in the systems he designed where it's critical that the system continue to function during maintenance and repairs. There was always a way that you could have this part of the system run your project, run your equipment, and this part of the system was down, needing repair. So there was always a way that you could have your system continue to function. Our system is not made that way. If we were to have a failure, the system would be shut down until the failure was fixed, which is somewhat disconcerting in that in certain failure type situations, the crest gate could go open. We have had the crest gate in essence open many times during the 20 years because we had a lot of water to shed. So we have that gate very nearly all the way open many times. However, once it's open, it's really dumping a lot of water and the lake levels will go down until it was fixed. So in looking at that, where do we go from here is kind of the question. John had gone through basically how the design works. In your packet, you'll see we've got a schematic, and Don is able to not only read the schematic, but take a sheet of paper and design a schematic. So his expertise on the schematics is at a very high level. And so that being said, we should have probably a general discussion about where we want to go from here with regard to our hydraulic system. And we're in a position, Don agreed to be here, so as we go through our discussions, we can for sure have Don come up and sit at the table and answer questions as we try to get our hands around how we should proceed in doing the task of replacing our seals, or redesigning our system. And again, I say the good news is we can get a cylinder. So working on the cylinder side, I think we're in good shape. On the hydraulic pump side, we have a little more of a challenge as to trying to figure out where we're going to go.
Yeah, Steve, if I could add a little bit to that, at least
Sure, I hope.
some of these, this is my opinion, most of it is. I think we're aware that the seals in the pistons have reached the end of their normal life, so they need to be replaced. But because of the configuration of the system, if we take one of the cylinders out of service, oops, if we take one of the pistons out of service, then we may or may not be able to operate the plan, the dam properly. So, in my opinion, it looks like maybe our best way to proceed would be to purchase a new piston. That allows us to swap that in and remove one of the existing pistons. Seals are available for that. Have those seals replaced. Bring that piston back and swap it for the one that still has the old seals, and then have that one reconditioned. And that way, we will have a backup piston available should we need it in an emergency situation or a failure situation. In terms of the hydraulic system, there's some issues with the existing system that I think should be corrected. The question is do you take a 20-year-old system that has pumps and motors that are no longer being manufactured and try to just update the seals in the O-rings, in the piping and the hoses, and continue to use that system? There is a limited life on equipment, no matter what kind of equipment it is, whether it's a car or a tractor or hydraulic system or pumping station. They all have a limited life on their pumps and motors before they need maintenance. It appears, from my understanding, that if we have to pull one of the pumps or motors out that's currently in there, first of all, we have to find a replacement, which some are available that would properly replace what's there, but we have to get those in, and we likely would have to take the whole hydraulic system out of service for some period of time while those repairs are being made. If we take the hydraulic system out of service, then there's a period of time when we're not going to be able to adjust the dam. And should we get a major rainfall, or if it's raining and we're dumping a lot of water and then we get a droughty period and we have an extended time period where we can't get the replacement parts, then we face the issue of the lake level dropping below its legal limit. So what I would like to see, depending on when we can get the budgets approved, is actual replacement of the hydraulic system with a new system that has all new seals, new pumps, new motors that are serviceable, hopefully for at least the next 20 years.
So it's the same system, or a totally new system?
It would be a totally new system, but it would operate primarily the same, but there would be some modifications to the operations that would be done. For instance, I've designed pump stations for water and sewer in my past, and typically the way we design those is we have two pumps. Either pump is able to operate the total system. So if one pump goes out of service, you operate the other pump. It appears that that might be a more reliable way to have our system designed. That's not the way the current system's designed. One pump can potentially operate both cylinders, but it's not easy to make it do that, or not simple to do that. So, I mean, by the time we invest in redoing all the seals, checking all the piping, all the O-rings, all the work that should be done to the existing system, we're substantially, I think, to the point where replacement of the system and ensuring that we get another 20 or 30 years of life out of it is a more appropriate way to go. And in this new system, we would incorporate those changes that might be desirable.
Question for you. Are there any predictions on the life of these two pumps, the actual electric motors? Are they a 50-year life or are they a 10-year life?
I don't have the answer to that.
These pumps are being run at very low pressures.
Don, can you come sit at the table?
Sure.
Don Compton is going to go sit at the table, and we have a question that he can answer, which is good. Don has a place on the lake.
Don, could you spell your last name for me, please?
COPPINS.
Thank you.
Wife and I bought a place 41 years ago. It's been a long time. The pumps that you are talking about, each one of those pumps are gear pumps, and they are rated for 3,000 psi. The maximum relief valve pressure you have on your hydraulic system is 1,000 psi. That means that the life of the pump is very long. Doesn't mean it's not going to fail. Pumps, just like the cylinders, have seals in them. When the seals become hardened, they crack, and then there's a failure, and then the pump doesn't produce. Also, if you had dirt in the system, which your system is very clean, but if you have dirt, if you double the end clearance on the pump gear, from the gear to the wear plate, then you cube the leakage. And so, as a wear, it's like a disc brake. You have two pads on the outside of the gear, and they're forced hydraulically into the gear to minimize the gap. And if that gap isn't maintained and it gets twice as big, you cube the leakage. So to answer your question, the pumps are rated for much higher pressures than you're running them at. And one caveat of that is the system is supposed to run, right now it runs at 600 psi. I was with Jerry in 3rd of July, and we were operating the system in both gauges, for both cylinders were at 600 psi. And we've heard comments prior to this that one cylinder could handle the load. Well, if you had one cylinder handling the load, it would take 1,200 psi. So the system was never set up to run one cylinder and do all the work. And that was 600 psi someplace in, let's say, the nice spot, the beauty spot to operate the dam. It wasn't down at full open. When it goes to full open, there'll be more water weight on the dam, and there'll be a different angle of the cylinder to the load, so the pressure will be increased. So even though you may have a hydraulic system big enough And that piston, by the way, is rated for 3,000 PSI as well. Even though you might be able to handle the full load with that size cylinder, the hydraulic system was never set up, the relief valves were never set to run one cylinder. So, but they are adjustable, and you can adjust them. The other thing about the cylinder is you can replace the cylinder. A replacement is available, but I would go to Parker Hannifin first, who manufactured the cylinder, and say, here's my application. What's the most long-living seal we can put in there? You tell us the best seal. If we have the best seal, that's fine. We'll go with it, but don't put it on yourselves to make the decision as to what seal you need. Go to the expert and let them decide what seal will work the best in your application.
Is there any life limit on the lines and the hydraulic fluid itself?
Yes, there is a life limit on the hydraulic fluid, and there is a life limit on hoses. The hydraulic lines in the system are carbon steel, and they have, I think it's a Parker CPI fitting on it. It's a tube fit, and it doesn't have a taper on the back of it, a 37-degree flare. It actually has what looks like a bathroom fitting, which is a ferrule that goes over the tube, and as you clamp it down, it clamps to the tubing itself. Those fittings do not fail very often, and they run for a long period of time. In fact, there's another manufacturer called Switchlock who makes one. The way they sell it to you is they take a straw and they connect the fitting to the straw, and you can't move the straw back and forth. And then you can take the fitting and loosen it completely all the way out to the end of the nut. You still can't move the straw. So there are so many seals in that particular fitting, the way it's designed, that even when the nuts get loose, they don't lift. As far as the hoses go, right now the only thing that can really shut you down completely, besides a power failure, is if you blow a hydraulic hose on one of those cylinders. Oil, like people, takes a path of least resistance. And the path of least resistance is to spill all over your wall and all over your floor and pump oil out. So the only way we can be assured that we don't have that type of failure is for you to set hoses. And I just can't imagine that you would have a system running 20 years without spare parts, let alone a hose. Now, your hose doesn't bend. It doesn't move in any huge, there's no huge movement on it, so it's in the best possible condition. Hoses have minimum bend radiuses. And you don't come even close to the minimum bend radius. So it's going to last a long time, but eventually those materials will fail.
So as we look at our next step, let's say our next step is to get a new cylinder with the best seals. And the idea there would be we could take that new cylinder and we could install it. We would basically choose a time frame when we can set the level of the dam. We can put our safety hold on it. We can depressurize, we can take a cylinder off, put a new cylinder on, and then take that old cylinder and have it rebuilt. Get it back, put it on in the oldest cylinder's place and have that one rebuilt. Then we would have a new cylinder and two rebuilt cylinders, in essence one spare, and have the hydraulic maintenance done on that part. And in that, I was going to ask Don, should we just go ahead and replace all the hoses while we're doing that?
I would definitely replace the hoses. They're the next weakest point that we have. Another thing, someone mentioned earlier, what happens when you have a complete power failure, or if we're doing this and we have to shut the dam off, this is adjustable. I would recommend that you have a mechanical stop. and you use it for inspection of the dam, I would recommend that you bring the cylinders to a point that the mechanical stop can hold them in position for maintenance. But if you decide that you have to run the dam, even if the hydraulic system is completely shut off, and I've mentioned this before, you have salt equipment here built by Truck and Trailer in Petoskey and the Road Commission. And the spinner on the back of that pump, or the back of that truck, has 7.5 gallons a minute going to it, which is 5 times the amount of flow rate we have going to the cylinders now. And you could hook it up in an emergency and run your hydraulic cylinders. You have the jaws of life at the fire department. You can add one valve to that, which would be a pressure reducing valve, because those run at 10,000 psi, and run it down to 1,500 psi, and you could run your cylinders. You can take a hand pump and run your cylinders, as long as they're not leaking more than the hand pump displaces. You can take a tractor that you use for mowing lawns along the side of the highways, and we can use that to run the hydraulic cylinders. So there is a way to run the hydraulic cylinders unless both cylinders fail or you have a hose that's failed, but you can bypass around the hose. And your cylinders have a lot of lock valves on them that you can shut off, turn on and turn off, and protect the maintenance person when you're operating. So there are a lot of good things, good features in your system, and I think you only hook up to the county road commission truck if you have a problem, because then you're going to have oil from 2 different systems coming together, and what's in the county truck is not as clean as what's in your system today. So we would have to deal with that later. But there are a number of ways that we could run those cylinders if we have.
How dangerous is a hydraulic leak if the operator happens to be in the control room?
It's not as dangerous at 600 psi as it is at 15,000 psi. Because if you have a leak, then you atomize the fluid and then it's combustible. But at 600 psi, it's not so combustible. You have more likely the case of slipping and falling on slippery oil. Now, the oil in your system, when I saw it run, my imagination, when I run through the scenarios, I don't think you get up over 150 degrees. If you get a component at 150 degrees, you can put your hand on it, but you can't hold it there. And you burn yourself. The hydraulic oil, I don't think it's hot enough to do that.
That'd be another plus for keeping the system in a similar fashion that it is now. That pressure with those cylinders running at a lower temp has worked for 20 years, and it's basically it's like the concept of having a large engine in your vehicle. You have a large engine that's not running at very high RPMs, has a lot of torque. It's not doing its peak work. It's doing the work you need it to do well within its ease. So we have a system that can do the work that's needed to do at ease, not at high pressure. So we kind of are covering some pretty nice safety bases just by having a system that's not operating at high temp, high pressure. So I like that portion of it.
The other thing is, you have your main release set of 1,000 psi. And you previously said that you run the dam to the full open position. So in order to bring that back, at any time you ever ran them out, you had to bring them back. 1,000 psi was enough to do the job with both cylinders. And you have some little details that your drawings don't explain, but it really should explain, because you need to know what's going on. You have cracking pressure and full flow pressure. So if the relief valve cracks at 1,000, that's much different than the relief valve doing full flow at 1,000. So you set it up to crack at 1,000, it's going to go full flow maybe 1,200. If you set it up for full flow at 1,000, that means you really only have 800 psi of operating pressure to look at. So you really need to make a decision when you write your manual You need to put that type of information in so that the person who sets the relief valve in the future knows how to set it, cracking or full flow. But you must have already operated it with the relief valve set at 1,000 because you got back from the full open position. So you must be able to do it with 1,000 on 2 cylinders. And if you only had 1 cylinder, that would mean you would need 2,000.
So anyway, it brings us to quite an interesting position, but I think we could head toward action with regard to the cylinder side of the system. That's something that we could entertain today. The other side is an interesting dilemma per se. I guess I'm thinking that we need a slightly different design. I like Garth's idea of having the ability to have 1 pump, 1 motor, run the 2 cylinders, say at 600 PSI, and do the work and do the system. And have the capability of shutting one side down to work on the other side. And there are some other techniques that Don has mentioned that we could incorporate in a design, allowing us to pull the motor and pump out of the tank on either side to repair it or replace it. So there are some things that can be done on a redesign, and we could still keep our basic premise of having 2 cylinders operating at 600 as our base. So I think we're kind of at a point where we need to think about redesign on the system, and I believe we need that whole system myself. I don't think chipping away at repairing the system we have makes a whole lot of sense when it can't function if something goes down in that cylinder system, in that pump system. If that goes down, we're done until we fix it. So I'm thinking that at the very least, on that side, we need to look toward a redesign. And I think in that, we'll need to find a company that can do the redesign, and we definitely want to be in on the process because Don, I think, has some real good expertise and knowledge that I think he'd be willing to take a look in that process to ensure that things that we want, that maybe he suggests that we like, are in the new design when we get it finally done. That's kind of my thought.
Another thing you can do with the design is right now you have 2 pumps. Each one is running through a valve to a cylinder. So pump A runs through valve block A, runs cylinder A. B runs valve block B and runs cylinder B. There is a situation in the circuit where if 1 pump fails, you can run 1 pump and it will run both cylinders A and B through 1 valve stack. But if the valve stack with that pump fails, then you're shut down as well. So you can't have 2 pumps, 2 unique valves, and 2 cylinders that always have to run. You can have pump A run with valve block A, or pump A run with valve block B, and the same with pump B. It can run with valve block B or valve block A. You can set the circuit to do that. Right now, valve block A, if it's done and pump B is done, you're done. No saving. So there are a number of things that you can do in the design to make the design better. It's just a matter of how many degrees of reliability do you want in the dam system. And you have people like oil companies I used to sell equipment to, and their process of making, say, gasoline, 1 unit would be worth $500,000 per hour. So they had to have everything run and be available, maintain it on the run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, no excuses and no mistakes. You have to be able to continuously run. And In fact, they even go to the point of having a second unit as a full standby for it if they need to. So you have to decide, I think, what you want in this dam system, how the dam is going to work. And we have a system that's worked for 20 years. It's worked well. It does everything it's supposed to do. But you need to decide, today is the day you need to replace the seals. You're not prepared for that. If you need to get a hose, you don't have one. If you need a set of O-rings, there aren't any. So no matter what you do with the system, you need to provide for maintenance items that are normal, everyday things that fail. And so you need to have those components available to you. But if you do design a new system, then you have to really decide about a lot of things, and you need to make sure that you coordinate it with the electrical panel that you have. Because right now you have an electrical control panel that runs these two pumps. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, right, Jerry, you turn both pumps on every time you run the system, right? So both pumps are running all the time. So if each pump produces 1 gallon per minute, you have 1 gallon per minute for each cylinder. If one pump fails, you can run both cylinders on one, but it runs at half the speed. That's assuming that there's no leakage in the seals of the cylinder. There may not be any leakage today. I suspect there is a little bit, but there may not be enough to prevent you from operating the system. So, but keep in mind, if he's running both pumps, if one pump is used, everything runs at half speed. And half speed may not be a problem if you're just moving it back to a position. And the safest position is going to be a position that you can mechanically lock out. So you have a mechanical locking system, you bring it to that position, you lock it out, you do the maintenance, and then you turn it back loose again. But it should not be full open, because you wouldn't want it full open for long term. And in the case of this system, if there is a failure right now and you're not prepared, minutes matter. So you need to have a procedure, and maintenance needs to know what to do to bring it back to an acceptable position. You don't have time to think about it, and you need to write a procedure, and minutes matter right now.
And you're suggesting we should have a spare parts inventory of some sort?
Well, everything is expensive when you buy it. So I would have thought when the system was put in originally, you would have bought one set of hoses, one set of seals, one extra pump, but that wasn't accomplished. So now, if you're going to change the system, obviously, you don't need to buy 5 sets of seals. The sandwich seal, between the valve sections, there are, I think, 10 sets of those on the system. So I think I would buy 2 sets. If you're going to change the circuit around, those spares are going to be wasted in the future. So you might as well not waste it in the future. I would buy 1 set of cylinder seals, and I would buy 1 spare pump. But that's for operating right now with a set of hoses. I wouldn't buy relief valve cartridges and valve bodies and directional valves. The directional valves are 3-way valves. If the coil fails on the end of it so you can't shift it, you can take your pencil or a small screwdriver and put it in the end. It has a manual override. You can still work it. But you can't work it if you're not in the room with it. You can't just electronically turn it on from your computer. You have to go down there and physically override the valve. But you do have the ability to run it.
2 questions on the cylinders, the hydraulic cylinders. I assume it's much less expensive to rebuild a cylinder than to buy a new one.
I hope so, yeah.
And the quality, the life of a rebuilt cylinder is the same as a new one?
In my opinion, it is, yes.
Okay.
What's the life roughly expected for the current pumps and motors that we have?
Well, the current pumps and motors, I would say that they're probably, well, it can fail for any number of reasons, but everything being equal and running in an ideal situation, which these are ideal, I would say they're 25 years or 30 years. You remember they have a shaft seal on them, and a lot of times just the shaft seal will wear right into the metal shaft, the drive shaft, and it'll cause a leak right there. And then that's when you want to shut it down, because it leaks up by the motor connection. In high pressure applications, they don't last that long.
Mhm.
But yours is not high pressure.
So, what are we thinking?
It's overwhelming.
Yeah, it is. I'm thinking that we should, at the very least, head down the path of a cylinder purchase.
I think that makes sense. I think if you're in the 5-year time frame of where you need to be responsibly thinking about replacing the motors and pumps, then I think the direction Garth was headed makes sense to me. The only thing is, how much money do you want to spend between now and then on replacement parts that you might not need once that's done? So I think establishing a timeline for the replacement system would be important to figure out what to do next outside of the cylinders.
Good point. I guess I'm thinking we need to move forward
Sure.
because we're at the expected life expectancy of some of the seals and some of the systems, and we need to move forward on all fronts. Number one, the cylinder, there's a path we can go to get a cylinder. And once we have the cylinder, then hiring someone to replace it would be relatively straightforward. So we would be partway down our path. When we do the cylinder rebuild, probably be a perfect time to buy a set of hoses, buy a set of seals, and have all that come with the rebuilt cylinder. Once we have all of that in-house, when they go to put that cylinder on the other old one, we can have them do the hoses. So we have new hoses, and we have a new cylinder, and we have a rebuilt cylinder, so the cylinder end is maintained. We're back to square one. Probably the only other thing to do with the cylinder piece at that point is to put a time on when it happens again. So,
Let me say this, Steve, if this was mine, I'd buy the hoses and seals this afternoon. I
So-
wouldn't wait because you've already run for 20 years and a hose can fail anytime. And Garth said it earlier today, when's it gonna fail? On Christmas Eve when we can't buy it. So I would go get it and put it in storage. Nothing, it's not gonna hurt anything if it stays in storage, and we can change them anytime you wanna change them, but I wouldn't suggest changing them today, I would just have them. You know, I know you can get hose in Petoskey, and I know you can get that hose in Grand Rapids. I'm not sure you can get that hose in Traverse City. You may be able to, you may not be able to, but I would just have them in storage and have the seals in storage. I don't advocate taking the valves apart and putting seals in them today. I just say have the seal kit. Seal kits don't cost anything. Well, they're very inexpensive, like $10 for a seal kit. Now I'm suggesting you get 2 of them. So I'll give you the money. Not a problem. You know, these are the things that I would do if it were mine today, just to be ready. because you can't predict what day it's gonna fail. Just like you go out in your car, you can't predict what day it won't start. No, it may not start. It's been reliable for 20 years. A car could be reliable for 20 years. It doesn't mean one day it's not gonna start. So I think you want to talk to Parker about having them specify the exact seal you should buy in your new cylinder, and then have them put it in and buy them. And when they come, follow whatever process you decide to come up with. But you need to, I think everybody needs to think about what the process is, what steps you're going to take, and develop a criteria and operational procedure as to how you're going to deal with a broken hose, how you're going to deal with a failed seal cylinder, how you're going to deal with all the other failures that are potential, so that a person who's doing the maintenance knows what to do next. Because sitting back and deciding what to do will take time. And
Do we assume correctly that the replacement cylinders would work for any new redesigned system?
yeah, I would think so, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Does this have to go out for bid?
Yeah,
Okay. This is just a quote for our information. But
correct. It will have to go out to bids as per procedure.
That cylinder manufacturer, that company you got the bid from, they're a Parker Hannifin cylinder distributor. The people you bought the system from originally was a Parker Hannifin cylinder distributor. So you can go to 3 distributors and get the prices. But it's not Parker Hannifin direct, and I don't know if Parker Hannifin direct would sell to you direct because they have distributor agreements with those people.
Deb, Administrator Allen.
Deb?
I just was gonna say, there are budget rules that we can look at. It all depends on what the cost of the item is. So if it's underneath the threshold, if the threshold right now is under 5,000.
Yeah, this is,
Closer to 10.
this is 10,000. So,
That's the
how-
threshold for making sure that
yeah, I think it has to go out. I think 5,000. If it's under 5, we can do 3 quotes. If it's over 5, we go out to bids.
So do we need a motion to get this wheel moving, or how does that?
That would be acceptable. Yes.
Go for it? Or Garth?
Well, yeah, I'll make a motion that we go out for bids for a Parker 3H heavy-duty replacement cylinder. And then we can add the specifications, the 7-inch bore, the 58-inch stroke, and 20-pound SAE ports.
And is that in our budget for 2024?
Oh, yeah. I think everything we do, we could go with this, and then we're gonna go with the design, and then we're gonna go with the new pump system.
Okay.
And whatever the cost is, we will present that to the county board. And I believe it's something that's in our best interest as a county to do at this point in time.
And Steve, just as a clarification, we don't need to have the seals or the hoses and the O-rings in the motion that I made, because those are minor maintenance items.
Correct. Correct. It's my understanding that we will be able to get our hands around the cost of the hose replacement and the seal kits as a separate item.
So we are moving forward with someone going out and purchasing those, maybe tomorrow, not today, but
You mentioned the hoses are carbon steel.
The hoses, they have a wire mesh wrap in them, and the hoses are Buna rubber.
Oh, okay, so those are not expensive either then.
No, relatively. I mean, I don't know how long your hose is. I would imagine it's probably 6 feet long or 8 feet long. And you would have a cost of maybe $350 per hose.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm thinking the hoses and seal kits will fit into maintenance. And there's plenty of money for that. Yeah, we're gonna end up finding a company to work with too somehow. So that's probably right along with the seals and the hoses. Who's gonna do it is the question, and what company do we choose to do that work will be a question. So we'll have to figure that out. I think that'll be number one on my list, is to figure out what companies we can entertain to do the physical work of hose replacement. Anyway. So, we have a motion. Do we have?
Support.
We have support. So, we're going out to bids. Need to vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And my to-do is to find what companies would be available. And I think what we will need to do is think about a company that could do the whole replacement, not just the hoses, but once we get a new system, that company should be able to do the system too, as far as installation.
Another thing you might want to verify, speaking to Garth about this earlier, was the schematic shows rigid lines inside the tank on the pumps. There is a breather cap you can take off. You use a bore scope to look inside that tank and make sure that they're not flexible hoses. If there are flexible hoses in there, that means we can pull those pump motors out and replace them while they're running. If they're rigid lines, you can't do that. The schematic specifically shows a rigid line. So you need to verify it before you start replacing the entire system for any reason. Make sure you have that situation. I didn't build it, so I don't know. But I know when I look at the schematic, it shows a rigid line. It doesn't show those. You want to at least pull that breather cap off and look in there and make sure that that's the situation. Also, the pumps, when you get around to buying the pumps, they have a rotation. The rotation is either right hand or left hand, clockwise or counterclockwise. You look at the center of the shaft, looking down on the shaft. In one of the pictures you sent me, there is a rotational arrow on the motor showing that those pumps are right hand rotation. The schematic that Michigan Fluid Power gave you and the model number they have listed don't have a rotation. If you get the wrong rotation, you have to rebuild the pump before you put it in for operation. Otherwise, as soon as you turn it on, it pulls the shaft seal off. So it's important that you establish, when you look at the pump, it has right-hand rotation. I'll mark the schematic drawing for you with the R indicating it's right-hand rotation right now, or clockwise. And I'll send that to you.
Perfect. The other company that needs to get located would be the company to do the design. So we have two different companies to locate. I do have a lead on a company at this point in time, and I can make contact with that company and see if they truly do have the capability to do a design for us. We're going to bump into, do we go out to bids for that too? So That's probably a question for the group, I guess. We do not have a specification yet to go out to bids for a company to design a system.
You know, Steve, you need to develop a spec to give to people to do design, but it's traditional in the hydraulic system industry for them to make a schematic and present it with their proposal. So, you know, they're absorbing the cost of the price of the design based on hoping to get the order. And so I don't think you need to necessarily pay someone in the hydraulic industry to make you the schematic. There are several manufacturers out there of these types of systems that would make you a schematic and would present it at the time they present a proposal. And it's just part of the cost of doing business. And that's the way it's done. So I don't think you have to go out and pay someone to do it. I think you just go out and say you want to buy a power unit and this is what I want. And here's my specification, and then you would get the schematic. And you can look at that and talk to the supplier and make sure that they're providing all of your requirements, and then tie in your electrical panel manufacturer to make sure his panel works with that system. Because right now, when you make the change, the two are not going to be compatible completely, and there needs to be a change to this electrical panel. But that's just moving a few wires around and not necessarily adding lots of components. Maybe a few, but not a lot. The nice thing about the electrical is it's all dry, nothing gets wet on the floor, so don't spill any oil on it. And just have to remember to turn it off before we start working on it.
Okay, lots of moving parts. So just to try to wrap my hands around that, we are not looking for a company to do the design, we're looking for a company to build a power unit. And the design comes with the build. They just have to have, if we go out to bids with that, the specifications for the power unit would go out with the request for a bid.
And there would be the hard type specifications that would say, I want aluminum construction in my pump. I want to be able to change the pump on the run safely, meaning, protect the maintenance person. And I want pump A to run cylinder A and B. And I want pump A to be able to run through valve block A or valve block B and still run cylinders A and B. And the same thing with the other pump. And then you have some other things in that circuit that are important, like you have a level switch, so you have to meet a certain level before the pump turns on. It's a permissive. You have a permissive for temperature. You have to be a certain temperature before you turn it on. You already have those things today in your circuit. It's a nice circuit and a good system, and it works, it does a job. You just have to set it up so you can do maintenance on it in the future. So you kind of can follow your schematic the way you have it, but, detail out changes that you want to make the system more reliable and easier to maintain. The other thing is, we have secondary containment on the oil in that tank. It's only a couple gallons. It's a 35-gallon tank. They make plastic tubs that you can put on the ground, put the hydraulic unit in it, and contain all the oil. It'll hold 70 gallons of oil instead of 35. So, go ahead.
Can I ask you just to give me a wild ballpark figure? What are we talking for this new design
Money.
system? I mean, are we talking 100,000, 200,000? I mean,
Oh, no, it would never be anywhere near that.
okay.
I mean, I haven't been in business for 12 years, so I can tell you that this thing is maybe as much as $40,000.
I mean, I really have no idea when you're doing all this talking to me. I
Less
just
than
didn't
the price
understand
of a
what you.
new car.
Well, okay. I think we should start moving forward, guys.
Amen.
Yeah,
I had a
that's
question.
doable.
And don't tell them I told you that.
No, just to give me something to hold on to, please.
I don't want to stay at my house for free.
That's true.
So we're probably talking a new tank, a new top, the
Well, you
whole,
would-
the whole new thing.
If you have a system, you're gonna get everything.
Yeah. So would you be willing to put together a spec sheet for us?
No, I don't think so. I think that you have to decide as a county what you want to provide for the people who rely on the dam. And the other thing is, there's a tremendous amount of liability there if you make a mistake. And I think Jerry said it the other day, as soon as something goes wrong, everybody points their fingers at who did this, who did that. So, there's probably not enough liability insurance in the world to cover. You have a dam that failed down in Midland, it's already at $3 billion of liability. So, I would be not happy if I had 200 feet of sand from my dock. And I don't think any other homeowner on the lake would be, so I'm retired.
So we put the spec sheet together as a group.
Yeah,
With our insurance covering our oops.
yeah.
Okay.
And you get the suppliers to all come in and make a presentation to you as to exactly how their system will work and verify that it will do all of the things that you want it to do. And the other thing is when they build it, whoever builds it, you put in as a requirement that they must test it in front of your quality surveyor. That would be whoever goes down from your facility and looks at it. They would prove that it does each of these things. It has to prove that it can do it there, because making it do it here after you started it is a big problem. You really want to take care of it at the time of test before you accept it, before you pay for it. The industry is used to working like that, and I think that you can easily get together a spec that will allow you to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for the advice and the expertise. So I guess we need a committee to put together a spec sheet for a new hydraulic system.
You probably had a spec for the old one, right? When you built it?
John's nodding his head. John?
Steve, I'm going up against a hard time. When we built the dam, they furnished a spec on how he wants to operate it, and there was a big page on it. And I went to Don's house, and we sat down with that, and he had some good changes, and we put this in, and that's what got put in the system. So you can come up with what your desires are, and you can still have Don look at it and say, is this gonna work, or whatever. He said he isn't gonna design it. He can tell you that you wanna have a 2-pump system, or you wanna have this, or you wanna have that, and he can lead you in the right direction, but you can stay out of that. About 5 years ago, when you and I set up this 10-year budget, it was gonna be like 300,000, and we were gonna go for lake assessment and all that. There was a number in there to replace this hydraulic system, and at that time, we had someone give us a number. That's still available. With regards to the pistons, I didn't hear everything in that motion that Garth made, but we had money to do a new piston, because you're gonna need mill rights. And so we had a 1-bid thing, and I don't know if he just made it to buy a piston, but you got a piston here on the table, you gotta get it replaced. And so we went out for quotes. It was, make us a new system, a piston, go in there and take one out, take it back to your shop, replace all the seals, bring that back, take out the other one, overhaul that. And that was 1 bid. So I don't know if Garth said just to go buy a piston or do the whole job. Those are 2 different things. But Jerry and I, we found this guy that could come in and do the whole project. And that was $1 assigned to that. And that's how that motion should be, to replace both cylinders, overhaul them all, and get a spare. And I don't know what the motion was, but.
The motion was to get a cylinder, and I think that's step one. We're gonna have to find a company that's going to be the company that
And that's-
takes
that's
the
what we
old
did,
one
and
out,
we made
puts the
that-
new one
we made
in.
That bid, we found a company, say, hey, you're gonna have to do the cylinder, but we also want you to replace it and overhaul all the others too. You don't want just a cylinder here on the table and then go out to bid for some guys. Well, put it in yourself. If you want me, then I'll buy the cylinder, I'll overhaul the other cylinders, and I'll put the whole thing in. You don't wanna have a car with a new motor, say, hey, can you put this in for me? The guy should do the whole thing, that's my advice.
The guy who sent you the quote on the cylinder, they're a repair house. They build, repair cylinders that are 10 times as big as yours.
And you gotta make sure though that guys can also come in and take them in and out, so that you guys aren't struggling with.
I don't know that they would do that. I do know that they would do the rebuild. That it would be like new.
Well, that guy can sub this person out.
There's plenty of people who
But you
can.
should have one bid for that whole project, to take care of the cameras concerned with.
What's this gonna cost?
Well, I think it was $20,000. And I know you got those numbers.
Thanks, John.
Oh, one more thing. That procedure that you approved, there's two procedures here. One is to operate the dam, but the other procedure that you guys are concerned with is the level control procedure. So you can't have, Jerry's got a whole book on procedures on how to operate that dam. So you want to make sure you,
That's another topic in the agenda though. Thanks.
Thanks, Dan.
So I guess,
Any other hydraulic questions?
We need your name and phone number.
I got it.
I've got it.
It's attached on my check when I send in my property taxes every year.
They haven't gone down?
Thanks, John.
Yeah.
So that's interesting stuff.
The walkway.
Yeah, I just want to make another note. Okay. So we've got a new cylinder in the works. We got the maintenance update. Any questions or further discussion before we move on? Hearing none. Leland Dam walkway. Spicer weighed in. It's in your packet. There we go. They had a person that was in Leelanau at some point in time, and he was able to come over and snap a couple photos and do some rough measurements. And that facilitated analysis that they did. Daniel Zettes is the project manager. We have completed the analysis, summary letter attached, bridge is in good condition. We're able to apply 130 PSF of live load without any issues. The minimum load necessary for pedestrian bridges is 90. So there's plenty of capacity in the walkway. They have a recommendation for the next triannual inspection to verify beam sizes. They worked from drawings and some minimal size measurements. Let me know if you have any questions. So that was one thing that our insurance person wanted before we went and replaced the walkway, was to have that analysis done. So that is complete. I haven't seen a bill yet. but I'm sure it'll
It'll
come.
come.
Any questions on the walkway? I guess, yeah, we could just talk walkway for a second. I don't know. I think I made a comment earlier, but if there's any comment, I think hydraulics is leading the way and walkways on the back burner at this point.
The only thing I do want to clarify again, did put a sign up or we didn't put a sign up on the walkway? People using it, wasn't there?
Authorized personnel only.
It is
Yeah,
up.
those
Okay.
are up.
Are people respecting it, do you think? Because it would, I didn't feel like they were,
I
but,
think the answer is no.
no. But our obligation with our insurance company has been met. Thank
Affirmative.
you. Great.
I have a question. The insurance company made a recommendation for a tall railing on that, and we thought that that was not appropriate for that particular use. Did we get that resolved with the insurance company? I think they asked for a 6-foot or 8-foot railing.
I don't remember.
I don't think we have resolution at this point. We may need to go for clarification. Next, I'll put that in the next agenda.
And the idea of replacing the boards, that's still a to-do project, or,
I would say yes.
but nothing they saw that required immediate action, right?
Correct.
Okay. I mean, I don't see anything in the report that talks about the condition of the wood. Do you, or am I
We
missing?
didn't ask for that.
We already
We
knew.
asked for
Okay, just the
analysis
structural.
of,
Gotcha.
of if it would be strong enough
Yeah.
for a walkway. And that got answered. Okay. Item 5. Leelanau lake levels and sensor calibration. Maybe we'll let Rick kick that off, that discussion.
Can I send those down?
You wouldn't happen to have one more.
Oh, sure. Sorry, I thought I got 4.
Well, one goes to
Yep.
Alan.
So over the last 3 months, I've had a few phone calls and a number of Zoom meetings with Dave Fisher, who is the electronics guru for the lake level sensors. And he's overly enthusiastic about adding more staff gauges and electronic gauges, but put that aside. In the interest of keeping the discussion to a reasonable length, what I want to show you is that the data that we've collected. I've done the readings. The first 2 pages just show some of the readings that are done over the last 3 months. And these are staff gauge readings in feet, and I've listed the electronic gauge readings as well. So the analysis that I want to show you to get to the end of this discussion, on page 3, we have the readings in both feet and inches that shows the variation between the staff gauge readings and the electronic sensor. And the page 3 is for the dam, and you can see over these particular readings, we had about the average difference was about 0.8 of an inch, relatively minor, and I'll show you what that looks like on a graph. Page 4 is the same information for South Lake. That data in both feet and inches shows about a 3.67 inch delta between the electronic sensor and the staff gauge. There are a couple of data points that are not where they ought to be. Sometimes it's difficult to get a good reading. I selected days when it was calm, early in the morning, sometimes in the evening, tried not to do any readings when it's pouring rain. If the winds were high, I avoided it. The last page is shows the data for, in green is the dam, in red is the South Lake. I did not take any readings at the Narrows at this time. We need to do that in the future, but what this shows, we used a formula to readjust the electronic gauges to match the staff gauges. And you'll notice a couple of points in October on South Lake where the actual measurements that I took were way off the electronics. I don't know if I recorded something incorrectly. I don't have an explanation for those. But Dave Fisher used a regression analysis, a quadratic formula, I should say, to redraw these graphs and adjust the electronic sensors to match the staff gauges. So at South Lake and at the dam, he adjusted about 0.8 of an inch at the dam and about 3.6 inches at South Lake. That shows for now that we're relatively consistent in the readings between the staff gauges and the electronic gauges. His recommendation is that we continue to collect data throughout the year. It's a little difficult in the wintertime, but collect data and include the Narrows at some point to verify that what we show to the world is accurate based on the surveys of the staff gauges. He would like us to add another staff gauge, a couple more staff gauges and electronic sensors. I don't think at this point we need to do that. It doesn't tell us anything more. I heard comments from people on South Lake that they look at the lake level periodically when there's wind and there's water in their yard. What are we doing? What are we doing? Not so much on a low lake level. The question that I would ask the committee here, do we want to show that this is just the calibration data on Lake Man's information? It's not in the Lake Leelanau graphs that are available through the Lake Association. He can add these data points as we take them to both if we wanted to. My thought is that adds more questions and concerns by the general public than we need, but I'm certainly open to whatever the group thinks.
Does, has the graph representation of South Lake is the one that's on the Leelanau website, is that one correlate with the staff gauge at this point in time? Did we?
Yes.
So it's actually reading accurately now.
Well, they're reading the same.
Correct. Correct. I mean, for a long time, the South Lake reading was
Way off.
way off. Now it is not.
He went ahead and made that change without asking if I wanted it changed or if we wanted it changed. He said, well, why wouldn't you? After he did it, why wouldn't you want it as accurate as you could get it? And the staff gauge, we believe to be accurate based on the survey.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't argue with him. I think his argument or his position was probably okay.
And that's what they do with their staff gauges and,
Yeah.
So. I think
They have people on, I don't know how many lakes he's involved with, but on Glen Lake, they have individual people assigned for each of the staff gauges to read them periodically.
Yeah, and it's a great system.
It's the lake, it's part of the
Lake Association.
water level committee.
Yeah.
There's a technical committee and then there's a water level committee also.
I always in favor of more information. Uninformed residents are, at least we can always refer this if we posted it. Now, I mean, would it need a lot of explanation on the website that somebody's willing to provide? Or, And then are you going to be continuing to do these?
When I'm available, and I have to buy some new hip boots. One of the problems with the gauge on South Lake, in the wintertime, the level goes down and we have to dig the muck out and then clean the staff gauge. And John and I have talked about this for off and on. He says, go buy some taller hip boots. We'll have waders, but that's a hassle to get those on. And you literally have to wait 15 or 20 minutes after you clean the debris away to let the lake level seep back into the area of the gauge. So John has discussed for a long time, that's not an ideal location. Now, the owner of the property is out in California. He gives me permission to go on his property with all the no trespassing signs and just do it. So I'm going to do South Lake. Typically, when we come up to Leland for any reason, I go over to the dam and take a look. Cleaning the staff gauges becomes important, just to be able to read them relatively accurately.
Do we need to booster your volunteer service with another volunteer, or?
I would like to find somebody that could read the narrows. I talked to the owner of the winery, and
Dave at the,
yeah, he has no interest in being about, and I haven't
He
talked to
just
him
had
recently,
surgery,
but
he's not doing
he said, I got enough things going.
it. Yeah.
It would be ideal to have 3 different people reading them. I'm 5 minutes from South Lake.
Yeah. I would be very strongly in favor of that, of providing some sort of training and, agreement. But I don't know where the rest of you guys are thinking about that, but just relying on Rick to take care of all this sounds like a lot to me.
When we're out to dinner in Leland, it's perfectly okay, but I don't do that in the winter very often.
Speaking to the Lake Association, Jim Weiser, I'm on the board with John. You'll have no trouble getting volunteers.
That's
to
what
do
I-
work from our- That's what you need.
Okay, I should talk to Nancy.
Pass that on to her.
Okay.
I guess I would be in favor of letting Rick go ahead and interact with the Lake Association to get help gathering data for this.
Okay, I'm on their finance committee, so I talk to Nancy fairly often. I'll see if we can find some volunteers.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I think so too. And again, it widens our educational reach of, we're all in this together.
I don't think it's a bad thing to have them posted either on the.
On the Lake Association
Right,
side?
yeah,
If they're
Okay.
willing, I don't know.
yeah, it's just to throw the switch. I mean,
Okay. Do you want a copy of this?
basically, it's all foyable, so, I mean,
Anyways.
it's.
And
it's
as long as we're
public.
pretty comfortable with our
It's
facts
public,
and
it's
our
public.
research and our data collection.
Okay,
Well, I mean, if something looks weird, it probably looks weird for a reason, and then
More eyes
we would
looking at
have to, we would have to chase down what's going on, but I think that's great.
in the future, I would like Dave Fisher not to make adjustments without at least letting us discuss it.
You have our permission to let him know that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Does he work with Mr. Killen, I guess, Killian?
yeah, they're
They're
sorry?
partners?
they're partners, he
Mr.
and
Killian?
Cal.
Cal
Yes.
is-
Oh,
okay,
yes.
they're the two partners
Yeah.
in this, okay, gotcha.
They have different areas of expertise. Dave is into the electronics. Cal is more of a mechanic to actually install the equipment, update the equipment. Dave is a mathematician. He loves quadratic formulas and statistical analysis.
Sweet.
And no end to the help he's willing to provide if we put more gauges in.
And these numbers we're happy with, right? I mean, that they're saying the same thing is great, but, I mean, we're right where we should be and, right, is it?
The electronic gauges at the south end and at the dam are as accurate as we know how to make them right now based on the staff gauges.
That's great.
The narrows, I don't know. I don't have enough data.
Yeah, we were comfortable with that, the narrows a year ago. And then now we were focusing on South End and the dam.
Yeah.
So, and it's interesting, we've got, basically between the dam and the South Lake, there's 4/10, right?
I'm sorry?
Between the south end
Now they're the
and
same.
the dam, we've got approximately 4/10 difference.
Yes.
That's almost 5 inches.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's 4.8 or,
Yeah.
Yeah.
4.8.
we've had lots of discussions, and I think Cal thinks that's accurate. John Popa says that's way too much. Well, it is, the data says it is what it is. I don't know if there's a particular reason why we would think it would be any greater or less. Water flows downhill. The South Lake has to be higher. Is it 3 inches or 5 inches? I don't know. The staff gauges tell us what we think it is.
We've surveyed in the staff gauges, and so we feel they're accurate, so I would say the data we have is probably good.
Yeah. I don't have any reason to suggest another survey for any reason.
No.
That's all I have.
It's interesting. I thought, when all was said and done, that the level of the South Lake would end up being closer to where we were at the dam. But of course, we've got the river, and we've got all of the dynamics with the river coming from the North Lake down to the dam, so there's all of that dynamic. And then if you look at Narrows versus South End, it's less than 2/10. So we're a lot closer.
Yeah.
Which again kind of makes sense, but I think that's probably it's probably why Dave is saying, how about a couple more staff gauges?
Exactly.
It's probably an interesting, but I get there again, at one point in time, we decided as a dam authority to do a hydrologic study. And we almost did. Tuesday meeting, there was thumbs up. Gosling Zubek for 10 or 15 grand, we'll do a hydrologic study. By the time we hit the following Tuesday evening, it didn't go through.
Yeah.
So at that point in time, we started looking at sensors. We need data to lead us to whatever conclusion we might reach as a dam authority with regard to a hydrologic study. So, what I think, we're looking at it where there's quite a difference in level of South Lake and the dam, not so much between the level of South Lake and the Narrows.
Makes
The
sense.
Narrows is our check. So we need to, I think, add the Narrows in, and having people from the Lake Association add data points, and we can show them on the graphs. Lets everybody know that our sensors are functioning,
Yes.
and that, I think, is a good thing.
One of the questions that comes up from a lot of the riparians is, don't we need to dredge the Leland River? And I understand that the shallow areas are a concern in the summertime and so on. To put a staff gauge, Dave in particular, Dave Fisher said, to put a staff gauge and electronic sensor at the mouth of the river at North Lake would be beneficial. He said, you're going to find out the river goes downhill. And I went, yeah, I'm sure it does. The water always flows that direction. So whether that's a benefit for the people that are concerned about it or not, I'm not convinced. So one clarification, we want to add the data points if we can, the staff gauge, to the Lake Leelanau charts.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
Done.
Do we need
I
a
don't have
motion?
anything else.
I don't think so.
I don't
We
think
are,
so.
okay.
I would consensus.
Yeah,
Okay.
I guess if I can make a comment on
Oh,
that.
sure.
Which I'm always willing to do. I think if we did have another staff gauge and sensor on North Lake at the mouth of the river, it would tell us quite a bit of information in terms of how much capacity the river actually has when we're trying to draw down the lake which would essentially tell us how long it takes to draw down a lake during a large event. Is it critical? No, it's not going to change how we operate, but it'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, I agree. Well, what Dave and Cal both suggested is we move we have a sensor at the south end of the Narrows, which we're pretty close,
Yeah.
and then put one right at North Lake at the exit from the river. And that would tell us, or exit from the Narrows rather, that would tell us if the Narrows is a choke point. And then you do the same thing by putting a sensor at the entrance to the Leland River. You find out where the flow is most restricted when we get high water at North Lake and South Lake.
Yeah.
So it would tell us something.
Yeah.
Does it change the operation of the dam? Probably not.
No, the thing it might do though is indicate to riparians or whoever might do any dredging there where it would be most effectively done.
Yes. Agreed.
So as we look at it, it's, the concept of a hydrologic study is always lurking, and whether or not we need to look at that or talk about it, just understand that it's something we can think and talk about.
Well, putting in another staff gauge would be a lot cheaper than doing the hydrologic study, so I think we'll be going that route. Oh, weird. I think the commissioner.
Well, the Lake Association purchased the sensors,
Okay, oh,
and we have purchased all of the
staff.
replacement hardware and maintenance of said sensors, and
The staff gauge.
we've purchased and installed the staff gauges.
Yep.
So that's where that stands at this point. And the question of should we do it when is always there as far as more staff gauges and information that those staff gauges might give us. Do we need to head in that direction or not, I guess is the question. We'll keep that on the agenda.
Okay.
So, lake levels and sensor calibration, we didn't get to lake levels. I was pinging on Jerry. And what we did is, and Jerry likes it, we were holding at 9.1 at the dam.
Okay.
And 9.1 is just below the midpoint of the court order. So I guess the discussion would be, do we do 9.1 for the next field season? We can drop now with the controller we have by quarter-inch increments. So do we do a quarter-inch less than 9.1? Do we keep 9.1? And we don't have to decide today.
Good.
Just throwing that out. We're at winter level and we'll be there for a while.
Thankfully.
So anyway, anything else on lake levels at this point in time? The thing that's not here that we absolutely have to do, and does everybody have the
Last year's, or this year's?
sheet that's got the next meeting date on it?
January 10th.
It's, did you make enough copies? Did you? Everybody got one?
I did from everybody.
Thank you.
I couldn't find
Thanks,
my
Allison.
copies.
So our next meeting is January 10th. And we do it's an organizational and then a regular back-to-back.
And then we'll be setting our schedule after that. At that organizational meeting.
Right, conflicts with department heads, but that's okay.
And I'd like to maybe reiterate what Mr. Popa said, that maybe we could consider at least getting on the on the busy calendar here. And then if we end up not having business to do as often, cancel, but he does have a point. I mean, to help the clerk's office, juggle all the tons of meetings that they are covering for us. So we can have that discussion at our organizational meeting, right?
It's a good point. Yeah, and I was thinking the same thing. We've got on that sheet, we've got what we did in 2023. So we do have quite a bit going on, and there'll be some information at that point in time. I've got a to-do list with regard to companies and what they do. We've got we're going out to bids on a cylinder. I've got to do a little
Specs.
heads up on that to see how that's gonna play out. John, I think John had a decent point, if we get a cylinder from Company X, does Company X gonna rebuild the one we take off? And is Company X gonna come and actually install and all of the above? Same company could probably make the hoses and do the hose thing right at the same time. Buy the seal kit and everything. So that, yeah, anyway. Okay, we got that set.
What is our meeting after January 10th? Do we have a date for the?
We do not. We're going.
That's
we're
what we
going
would do
to-
at the January 10th
Okay,
meeting.
we'll do the whole year.
If we look at what we did last
Yeah.
go, we waited till April for the next meeting after January.
And wasn't that the tour, or did we, one of those we toured the dam too? but-
Right. So we did April, and then we turned around and did May, and turned around and did another May, and then we did a June. And that was for budgetary reasons. So my guess is we wouldn't want to go till April. We're probably going to want to keep chasing parts and pieces and whatnot. So I'll do my research on those companies. That's a great report, Rick. Thanks. Appreciate that. Don, thank you much. I'll be in touch.
We'll send you 3 suppliers for those cylinders. The names and addresses.
Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay. Are we to public comment?
I think so.
Did you do sensor calibrations?
We
Yep.
did.
Yep.
That was Rick's,
It kind of was.
5 and 6 kind of got smushed together. Seeing none, hearing none. Commissioner comments? Seeing none, hearing none, everybody's hungry. I'd entertain a motion.
Let's adjourn.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
We did it. Thanks for all that time. That was a lot. That was a lot.
good,
Any
though.
questions, comments? Please